Once again, it's time for our Masters of Fate video, where some of our biggest Patreon supporters gather together and decide what kind of crazy thing I'm gonna talk about this month. This one really threw me for a loop. What better way to spend the penultimate review on Media Mementos than talking about Ricky Sprocket, Showbiz Boy? And if you've never heard of the show, I don't blame you. In fact, I didn't know about it until just a little while ago. Let me explain. I'm a big fan of Nicktoons Network, and I thought that I knew all of their original shows by heart. You know, Kappa Mikey, 3 Delivery, The Secret Show, those kinds of things. But, as it turns out, my expansive knowledge of Nicktoons Network's original programming was missing one show, and it was this. Though, to be fair, it was barely on. The show lasted about a year and a half, and it got little to no promotion when it was on the channel. The reason is simple. There are two types of Nicktoons Network originals. The first were shows that weren't considered good enough to make it on Nickelodeon. These would be shows like Edgar and Ellen, Kappa Mikey, and Making Fiends. Just for clarity's sake, I love all three of these shows, but apparently Nickelodeon didn't, so they made their way to Nicktoons Network. And then the second type were foreign imports that were basically there for filler. They had some airtime that needed a show, so why not bring something in on the cheap? These would be shows like The Secret Show or Ricky Sprocket. But then I started thinking, how bad could this possibly be? Even with these cheap filler shows like The Secret Show, again, a fantastic show, in fact my favorite of all the Nicktoons Network originals, that one got a ton of promotion and was considered a staple of Nicktoons Network back in the day. But if Ricky Sprocket was accepted on the network with the same conditions, and it got next to no promotion, then this thing's gotta be a mess, right? Well, no, actually. While I wouldn't say it's the best thing ever like Dave the Barbarian is, but I've gotta say, this deserved at least some attention from the Nick execs. So what's it about? It's about this kid named Ricky Sprocket who, as the title suggests, is a showbiz boy. He's the biggest child star in the world, but he's not a bad kid. In fact, I'd say he's downright normal. The series follows his escapades of being a big star and a little kid. All the while, he constantly butts heads with another child star, Kitten Caboodle, who's everything that Ricky isn't. She's rude, she's loud, she's self-centered, and she's very annoying. So I guess it makes it feel all that much better when she gets her comeuppance time and time again. And at home, Ricky has a family of archetypes like an overbearing mom, a dim-witted dad, and an evil sister. So from the sounds of it, this is your generic kind of cartoon, right? Nothing special about it, nothing that really stands out in comparison to the competition? Well, sort of, kind of. It's complicated, and I think the best way to address how complicated it is by telling you where it comes from. Canada! Now look, I love Canada, it's a great country with amazing people, and it has the Northwest Territories. But they are not known for making good cartoons. Things like the first few seasons of Total Drama and 16, which just so happen to come from the same creators, are seen as exceptions rather than the norm. Canada only allows Canadian citizens to make shows. So because of that, a lot of Canadian cartoons have very low bars set for getting greenlit. And as a result, a lot of them end up, not great, let's just say. And that's what I was sort of expecting with Ricky Sprocket. And that's kind of what I got, but at the same time, not really. So firstly, I have to address that despite the fact that this is a comedy show, I didn't laugh once. I just didn't think it was all that funny. To be fair, this happens a lot with Canadian cartoons, but Ricky Sprocket nailed something that I don't think many of the others have managed to do, especially when they're trying to be funny. This show really knows how to make a compelling atmosphere. And that sounds like a cheap throwaway compliment, right?
Oh yeah, it's not funny, but the atmosphere's great!
But here's what I mean. I think that Ricky Sprocket's best American comparison is Mike, Lou, and Og, a show that, admittedly, I've grown a lot more fond of since the review a few years ago. With that show, I never thought it was funny either, but I liked the down-to-earth tone that it had, and the characters bantering with each other, and the chemistry in the world, and even if I didn't laugh, I could at least say that I was entertained. Ricky Sprocket does the same thing, but it amazes me with how they were able to do it. Mike, Lou, and Og is set on a deserted island where nothing happens and where nobody goes. Ricky Sprocket takes place in a fast-paced showbiz environment, but it keeps the same style. That's because instead of having the characters scream, be loud, running around, and zipping by, it has them talk and be themselves. Even if the characters, like say, the family are stereotypes of what a normal family in a cartoon should be, they're very charming to watch. Take, for example, the dad. Again, I didn't think he was funny, he's just forgetful and goofy. But he's fun in the way that he does it. With a guy who's so restrained and happy, but also kind of hapless, I can't help but find myself smiling, especially because he kinda reminds me of some people I know in real life. Same thing with Ricky. While yes, I do appreciate that they didn't make him a spoiled brat, I do like that Ricky feels like a real kid, not what a studio thinks that a kid should be. The same thing goes for his friends. Of course, these characters are exaggerated, that's expected in a cartoon, but they're still restrained enough to get attached to and enjoy what they're going through. Except for Kitten Caboodle. She's the outlier of what I just said, and yeah, I know I said that she was annoying before, and I stand by that, but she's at least a good antagonist showing what Ricky could be if he went down a bad path. She serves her purpose to get the stories going, and she always gets what's coming to her in the end, so I guess I can't really complain. So in short, if you liked Mike, Lou, and Og, I think you'll like this show too, but if you haven't seen Mike, Lou, and Og, and you're still thinking of checking this out, well, let me tell you, this is owned by WildBrain, and they own things like Wayside, The Curious George Show, The Animated Mr. Bean, and Larva. So if these kinds of things are up your alley, even if they're not really that similar to Ricky Sprocket, I'd say check it out. It can't hurt to try it at least once, right? Kinda like drugs.
And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
The episodes are a little hard to find though, but at the time of recording, they're available on Dailymotion, ready for you to see them and judge for yourself. Ricky Sprocket is really something else. And by that, I mean that it's very similar to one of Cartoon Network's biggest failures, but at least to me, that's not really a bad thing. The world could use more shows like Mike, Lou, and Ricky Sprocket, Showbiz Boy. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? Well, here we are with the penultimate review, right? We've got one more coming out in about 2 months. First week of August, and it's a big, long one. But enough about that. Have you seen Ricky Sprocket before? And if so, what did you think? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And now it's time to thank our wonderful Patreon people, starting with our Masters of Fate. Chan 11, Diego V, Kev Messick, Manny Paredes, MD the Dude, Ryan Williams, Timey, and Woody Woo. And now our executive producers, Aaron Vasquez, Albert Robinson, Blackjack, Edward Haas, H.R. Hoffman, I Am Vove, Indiscreet One, Ravioli Supremo, Unkale, Who Else But Zane, and YouTube Milkwad. If you too would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then why not donate to the Patreon? There's a link in the description below for you to check out. And there's also a link to the Media Mementos Discord server, so why not pop in and say hi? Alright folks, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.